This is one of my favorite lessons. I think it's because I was an actress before anything else. Not professionally, but my whole life leading up to college, and I was an undergrad theater major. And my favorite course was script analysis. And it was because I really had to break down my character and the character beats and the dialogue and find those true moments where the written word became life. And I love movies and its dialogue. Some of the best films have the most powerful dialogue that can change someone's life. Any Aaron Sorkin project has amazing dialogue, from television to feature films, and I include some clips from his work in Blackboard. As Good as It Gets. I don't know how many of you are around my age. You'll remember that film, but that is a great one. And I'll never forget my first experience watching the film in the theater, and that was one of the few times, if really only one of the only times, I've gone to the theater alone. And I remember sitting at the edge of my seat like this, just listening and capturing every single word. It was a great script. In fact, I include in Blackboard actually the transcript of my notes I have available for you, and read them, because in them I do have, I add some scenes of dialogue from the examples I'm giving. So As Good as It Gets, I have 2 small scenes, the dialogue. I want you to read that first before trying to find the scenes to watch. I do include some of the scenes for you to watch in Blackboard, but I want you to, again, read the dialogue first, because that's what this course is about. So that way, when you start writing your dialogue, you can model what you see and read here. And so it's not just any conversation. Dialogue is not conversation in a film, because we don't have the time to sit there and listen to the hums and haws of most conversations. Screen dialogue must have purpose and help move the plot forward. Every line, every word needs to have meaning. Otherwise, get rid of it. Yes, you must have the swing of everyday talk, meaning the natural flow of everyday talk, and yet at the same time, your content in your film is well above normal. It's a heightened reality. And so it's natural vocabulary, yes, but yet still confined. It needs to be compressed. There needs to be economy. Say what you want to say, what your characters need to say, in as few of words as possible. You must turn the beats of the scene in a single direction, that through line across changing behaviors. And so the dialogue is following with them and changing with them. And the tone, it must match and make sense what the character would say as their behaviors are changing. And natural vocabulary does not require complete sentences. You do not have to sound like you are writing an essay, and so it needs to grammatically be correct. People don't talk, especially if it's true to the character. If you're taking somebody from the streets, they're not going to have perfect vocabulary. They're not going to speak their sentences the way that some Ivy League educated know-it-all would converse with their friends or professors. You don't need to feel like you have to complete every single sentence. As you're reading scripts, you will understand all these notes and what I'm sharing with you. The more we're reading scripts in this class, you will see it unfold in front of you, what I'm saying. Aristotle says, speak as common people do, but think as wise men do. And so it's like that line in Prisoners that I read. that's some good stuff. That takes wisdom on the writer's part to be able to give some kind of exposition like that and to use some foreshadow. And yet it felt natural in the moment, and it was spoken like this common small town man would have spoken it. Another key is practice reading your dialogue. You can read it out loud if you have no one around you, and just use your phone's voice recorder and speak your dialogue, and then play it back and listen to it and hear if it sounds natural. Another thing you can do is get a bunch of friends together, cook them a meal, and do a table reading of your script. The whole thing, in fact, not just a few scenes here and there, but every scene. And as your friends are reading it, they may comment, or they may change things up to make it sound more natural or feel more natural. And so you'll be able to hear what sounds forced versus what sounds natural. And in fact, as you're hearing things aloud, it may inspire another idea, not just in what the character should say, but maybe even something that you need to change or improve in the plot. Aaron Sorkin, I think he's mastermind at dialogue. He teaches a master class, and he says dialogue is the most personal part of writing. He likens it to music. Dialogue can follow all of the same rules of music, including pacing, cadence, tone, and volume. How do you know if the dialogue you've written is a beautiful piece of Beethoven, or clunky and awkward like music on an amateur night? And try to be physical with your dialogue. Say it out loud to hear how it lands. Remember, you are in the business of writing things that are meant to be performed, not read. That leads us into a perfect transition, or a reminder that plays and films are not novels. So Sorkin says you're in the business of writing things that are meant to be performed, not read. You read a novel, you read the dialogue in a novel, but in a play or a film, actors are performing your dialogue. So what's the difference between dialogue for plays, and dialogue for the screen? There is a difference. Plays spin on the elaborate side. The dialogue is not as compressed. You have long soliloquies and monologues. In the space that you're in, that's okay. You can be in a black box theater, and so all you have are the words to engage your audience. You've got them there right in the palm of your hand. However, on the screen, there are many things going on, and your audience can quickly lose focus. They can be looking off to the side of the character, at the scene behind them. Things are constantly in motion on the screen, and so you have to keep the dialogue in motion. And so you break up. There are monologues in a sense, but it's broken up. The words are short and simple. Again, not complete sentences, and we'll get into a few examples. In fact, think of the difference from a play to a screen to the screen is action and reaction. You need that action and reaction in a film. Dialogue must most often be seen. When it's not, it's voiceover, sometimes off screen, but you use it mostly for exposition, introductions. I give an example of Love Actually, another one of my favorite films. And if you are reading the transcript on Blackboard, you can play the clip, or you can just go online. But I want you to read again. First, read the written words. When Hugh Grant, who plays the British Prime Minister, his voiceover credits are in the prologue, and he speaks about how love is everywhere. Love actually, title of the film, ... is everywhere. So it's playing over, arrivals at London Heathrow. People are greeting each other, hugging, kissing. You hear, whenever I get gloomy with the state of the world, I think about the arrivals gate at Heathrow Airport. General opinion starting to make out that we live in a world of hatred and greed, but I don't see that. It seems to me that love is everywhere. Often, it's not particularly dignified or newsworthy, but it's always there. Fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends. When the planes hit the Twin Towers, as far as I know, none of the phone calls from the people on board were messages of hate or revenge. They were all messages of love. If you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling you'll find that love actually is all around. That was a good use of voiceover. But if it's not voiceover to give exposition, when you move dialogue off the screen, it will lose the audience's attention. So it's best to keep, again, in most situations, dialogue on the screen. And once again, avoid long speeches. You may feel it's absolutely necessary and true to the moment, but trust me, you can work around it with visuals because that is what the screen is for. Good examples from Mystic River. Looking at the shooting script, pages 49 to 51, I give you a link to the shooting script and my transcript here. It's the pages 49 to 51 are a scene between Jimmy and Dave. It's the dialogue between them. And there's a really moving monologue, I guess you can call it. And you'll see it's broken up with action. And it's the action-reaction. Jimmy speaks action and Dave reacts. His reactions are spoken reactions. There's no such thing in life as a monologue. I mean, yes, technically I'm giving a monologue right now as I'm teaching, but if I were having a conversation with somebody, or if I was in a scene with somebody in real life, there's going to be beats, moments where I pause, moments where they might interject, nod their head, say, yeah, uh-huh. It's never just me continuing on and on and on and on and on, unless you're talking to somebody who's mute or deaf. But yes, there are exceptions, but you get what I'm talking about. Life is a dialogue. Life is action, reaction. Action, again, is the spoken word. Reaction is the spoken response. Life is always action, reaction. If you look at the word dialogue, dia means through. Logos is word or meaning. Remember how last lesson we talked about the through line when structuring your plot and keeping the plot moving forward? Well, dialogue helps keep moving your plot forward. In essence, dialogue is a flow of meaning. Your story, your plot, your dialogue needs to flow. So that's what you need to be looking for, especially when you are reading out loud, doing those table reads. Is it flowing? Break long speeches into the pattern of action and reaction. I have to keep saying that because a lot of you are in this class from the theater, and that's where you have your experience, or you've written some novels. I see it time and time and time again. People will write pages and pages and pages of dialogue and long monologues, and you do not have that much screen time. Every page in the script is considered a minute long. So if you have 5 pages of just dialogue, do you want to watch a movie of 5 minutes of just 2 people talking, 5 minutes of talking heads? No. You want to keep things going forward. So think of that again when you're writing dialogue for your film. For For those reading your scripts for consideration, first let me back up. What does that mean? So you've submitted your screenplay, let's say, to a producer. It's in consideration for what? Development into production. If you've submitted it into a festival screenplay competition, it still is in consideration to be what? Grand prize winner, first place. And so you have to remember that people are reading it. Okay, it's not automatically when you're writing. Yes, you're writing because you see it up on the screen, but before it's ever going to get there, especially if you want somebody to finance your film, it needs to be considered for financing, for production. And so keep that in mind when you're writing, that this is going to be read first before anything, unless you have the money to go and shoot this film on your own. I say this because demonstrating on the page the action-reaction patterns within characters, between characters in the physical world, projects the sensation of watching a film into the reader's imagination. Okay, I'll say that again. It projects the sensation of watching a film into the reader's imagination and makes the reader understand that yours is not a film of talking heads. You want these readers to see that flow, to read that flow, to see the picture before them clearly. You don't want them getting caught up on, oh, that line of dialogue didn't work. Oh, I don't see how that could, people wouldn't really talk that way. What? No. If they're not even thinking any of that and they're just following along because of the flow, that is a great thing, and more than likely you'll at least get into the top 50 of semifinalists, or your script maybe not go into development, but you might be a writer that they want to hire for something else. So because they like how well you write, your use of dialogue. That was in the coverage assignment that I gave. Dialogue is absolutely something that people analyze and comment on, and it definitely can show if you are green, if you have no experience writing versus how much experience and talent you have. Again, dialogue, everyone speaks differently, so dialogue is not something you can really learn, but you can finesse it over time. And so the more seasoned of a writer you are, especially in screenplays, the more people really start to consider your work. Suspense sentence. What is that? It's like ... as I'm thinking. That's how I naturally speak. Avoid empty words, therefore, but give them weight. Keep your audience hanging on to your characters, every word, by waiting for those final words in a sentence. Keep your audience waiting for those final words. So, what are they going to say? As if you and I were talking and I was about to tell you something really important. You're just waiting for me to finish. And I'm taking the time to either gather the courage, the strength. I've got a confession that I don't want to tell, and I pause. Those are the great, powerful moments. And so suspense sentences are when you are keeping your audience hanging on. Examples. I have to tell you why I didn't show up yesterday, and it's because that's a beat, that's a pause, that's the suspense, ... If you didn't want me to do it, well, why did you give me that? That what? Your audience is waiting to know what that what is. Silent screenplays. Okay? That storytelling back in the days of silent films was pretty powerful because they could not rely on dialogue. Granted, there were, a few captions, but you didn't have full dialogue happening. And, right, it was the picture, moving pictures that captivated you. And so you want to think about that. You want your moving picture to captivate your audience, and great dialogue can do that as well, but you do not want to rely on it. And so the best advice is show, don't tell. That goes for so many things. Just like what I was saying about the visual elements can be that much more telling and powerful than words. Don't explain something that your audience can already see. So your friend is, I think I use this example, your friend's walking out with, a lot of books and is sad, maybe let's say a sad or an angry or some kind of obvious emotional expression, and then you have a character reiterate what we as the audience have already seen. You're taking up time, and there's no purpose in that because the audience has seen. You don't need another character to come in and tell us, oh wow, you got a lot of books. Man, is that why you're so sad? Don't even waste the time on that. It's a bad example, but you get what I'm saying. You get the idea. So never, ever, ever write a line that you can create with a visual expression. Okay? I'm sad. No. Show it. I'm angry. No. Don't say it. Show it. I love you. Unless that's the first time that these characters are saying it to each other, fine. But you don't need to repeat it. Or if it's something they've already shared, you don't need to say it again. Show it with emotion. Ask yourselves, how could I write this in a purely visual way and not rely on any dialogue, not a single line of dialogue? Ask yourself that question as you're writing. The more dialogue you have, the less effective your scenes will be. Okay? The more dialogue you have and rely on, the less effective your scenes will be. Don't bury your dialogue, therefore, with an avalanche of empty words. So many scripts I read have empty words. Again, going back to keep keep the flow, keep the plot moving forward. Think of your through line, and if this dialogue is bogging it down and weighing it down, and we're just sort of like in the mud, in the trenches, and not moving forward, cut it, get rid of it. Write, therefore, for the eye. Okay? Visual, show, don't tell. Write for the eye, not just for the ear. Alfred Hitchcock said, when the screenplay has been written and the dialogue has been added, we're ready to shoot. That's pretty good. He got it. Image is always going to be the first choice. Dialogue is the last layer to add to the screenplay, okay? That's what we're talking about here, not plays. We're talking about screenplays, feature films, short films, television, digital. Less is always more. So, stage plays, okay? You've said all that you've had to say about screenplays. Now what about stage plays? What do we do? What do we do? Well, here's your dialogue checklist. You need to satisfy the needs of your characters and your audience. You need to address problems. So you're using your dialogue to address problems. You're using your dialogue to express ideas. and you're using the dialogue to express emotion. Okay, that's your checklist. So it satisfies the needs, addresses the problems, expresses ideas, and expresses emotions. Purpose of dialogue in a play is to A, reveal character, and B, move the story forward. That is the parallel with screenplays. It's plot. You want to keep it moving forward. And so that's where there is a similarity in plays and screenplays. The dialogue is to help move the story forward. And dialogue gives a distinct voice to your play, to your plot, not just your characters. Dialogue gives a distinct voice. There's prosaic or poetic, delicate or coarse, reliable or unreliable. You may speed things along in lean lines of dialogue, so going back to that lean, keeping it condensed, compressed, economic, right? If you want to speed things along in your play and keep your characters interacting. But if you want to start to slow things down for reflection, then that's when you put in monologues and soliloquies. A realistic play, the dialogue will take the form of everyday life and everyday conversation, okay, in a more realistic play. Non-realistic play, the dialogue may be more stylized. So that really just depends on what you are writing. Dialogue can be shaped also in a play by conflict. Dialogue in plays, especially films too, but especially in plays, must have special meaning when spoken by a character. It just goes back to, for anything that is going to, for dialogue that is going to be performed, think about you, if you were an actor, the power of the words that you want to speak. You want there to be special meaning and not just empty words. Every word, therefore, has purpose. When it comes to dialogue that will be performed, overall, every word of dialogue must have purpose. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? It is one of those great, and I'm talking about the play, and then of course it was adapted into a screenplay, but that's why I have that as part of your reading assignment, because of how just fantastic the dialogue is in that play. Confessions. Each line of dialogue executes a step in design that builds and arcs the scene around its turning point. Turning point is in the second act going into the third, when things are about to finally change. For the better, for worse, for your hero in the hero's journey. Think of the second act like a midlife crisis, when everything is derailed and there's a turning point, right? The hero knows where he or she is going, and then all of a sudden gets lost. Like, who am I? Where am I? What is happening? The second act of the play ends, therefore, with a confession in which the hero acknowledges his or her helplessness. At this point, and that's dialogue that we will hear. That acknowledgement is spoken. And at this point, the hero has the capacity to face the third act, reinvigorated by the struggle, because it's the first time he or she is actually understanding the struggle. Following the confession, the hero is then energized and inspired to continue their quest, their journey. And so here is where some really powerful inspirational lines of dialogue can come in. This is that, in that turning point. And I say this for those of you who are really, really interested in redemptive storytelling. This is where the redemption takes place, and these inspirational lines that you want people to quote for for years and years and years, you know, even past your time, that's where you put that inspirational dialogue in. David Mamet calls it the all is lost moment, that second act midlife crisis, when your character, all is lost in the world. And I had you read in the last assignment the entire 150 chapters in the book of Psalms, and the reason is because it reads like dialogue in the second act of an all is lost moment, or moments, and which again, that is crucial to the second act of any play or film. And Psalms, being a biblical example, is a great example of poetic and rhythmic dialogue. This is Psalm 3. Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver him. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again, because the Lord sustains me. I will not fear though tens of thousands assail me on every side. Arise, Lord, deliver me, my God. Strike all my enemies on the jaw. Break the teeth of the wicked. From the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessings be on your people. That was a psalm of David when he fled from the son Absalom, when he fled from his son Absalom. But going back to inspirational dialogue, I wanted to share some inspiring quotes from Hollywood films, just as a reminder what you want to strive. This is especially if you want to tell some powerful stories, and for those of you who are believers and want to write redemptive stories, dialogue is an opportunity to say something not just straight from the Bible, but something that just hits an audience member over the head with something so strong and true and powerful and inspiring that makes them want to make a change for the better. And so I want to just read some quotes from some great Hollywood movies, inspirational quotes. Some of these you're going to recognize, and you may have them memorized, but pursuit of happiness. Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me, all right? You dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. If you want something, go get it. Period. Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. The Godfather. Great men are not born great. Great men are not born great, they grow great. Good Will Hunting. Some people can't believe in themselves until someone else believes in them first. That makes me want to cry. Friday Night Lights. Being perfect is not about the scoreboard out there. It's not about winning. It's about you and your relationship with yourself, your family, and your friends. Being perfect is about being able to look your friends in the eye and know that you didn't let them down because you told them the truth. And that truth is you did everything you could. There wasn't one more thing you could have done. Can you live in that moment as best as you can, with clear eyes and love in your heart, with joy in your heart? If you can do that, gentlemen, you're perfect. The Leica movie, I love this. You don't have to be the bad guy. You are the most talented, most interesting, and most extraordinary person in the universe. And you are capable of amazing things because you are this special. And so am I. And so is everyone. The prophecy is made up, but it's also true. It's about all of us right now. It's about you. And you still can change everything. The blind side. Courage is a hard thing to figure. You can have courage based on a dumb idea or mistake, but you're not supposed to question adults, or your coach, or your teacher, because they make the rules. Maybe they know best, but maybe they don't. It all depends on who you are, where you come from. Didn't at least one of the 600 guys think about giving up and joining the other side? I mean, Valley of Death, that's pretty salty stuff. That's why courage, it's tricky. And then from one of my favorite movies, Silver Linings Playbook. This is what I believe to be true. This is what I learned in the hospital. You have to do everything you can. You have to work your hardest, and if you do, if you stay positive, you have a shot at a silver lining. The best way you can nail dialogue is to read dialogue. Read dialogue in plays and in screenplays as much as you can. There's so much on the internet that is available to you. Make a list of your 25 most favorite films. There's Hollywood's top 100 films. I tell you, if you can read the script for every one of those films, you're going to learn how, I don't want to say you're going to learn how to master dialogue, but you are going to absolutely understand great dialogue from weak dialogue. It's going to be the best lesson. It's not this one, but reading as much in scripts that you can.